rural regions, and there's hundreds of books written about this, and this is the basic premise we come from, that if a culture or a civilization loses contact with its rural base, it will collapse eventually. No way around it. Because the food system and the water system are the basis of civilization and energy. But those two, people will die. You can live without electricity for a while, and maybe forever if you're adaptable. But if you don't have food and water, you're dead. And the truth of the matter is that we're losing contact with that piece of what goes on in this country. And that's the underlying goal of what Roots of Change is about. That's why we call it Roots of Change, because the root change that has to occur is that urban and rural people have to get back in sync. And I wasn't asked to come talk about that, but I would love to come do that another time.
Well, I could go on and on. You know, Prop 2 is going to basically do away with the egg industry and chicken industry too. I mean, and then locally, you know, we got, for instance, we talked about the timber industry in Covelo. Many of you are familiar with Covelo. We have basically one logger over there. Recently, our building and planning department recommended denial of his use permit, so he'd have to go out of business because they figured it'd been in his location for 30 years. But it's a bad location now, so they recommend denial of his use permit. You know, we're doing a lot of it to ourselves. We blame federal and state government, but we're doing a lot of it to ourselves. You know, you stab yourself in the back and then wonder why it hurts.
So the issue is the challenge is how do you actually connect people? So some of the suggestions or opportunities that I was discussing are ways to actually wake up people to what they need to do in order to keep agriculture alive. Because the problem is when you have a commodity, it's faceless. So no one knows that rancher or that person on that farm, and therefore they have no connection, and so they don't give a damn except for about how much it costs. And that's the basic problem we're facing. So what's happening now, California is a net producer of food, a net importer of food. So it shouldn't be that way, but it is because people aren't connected to the fact that they should be buying crops from their region if they care about the long-term health of their community. So we're importing from Mexico, you know, a million places, South America.
When I was a kid, California was called the food basket of the world.
Right.
Now we're a net importer of food.
It's incredible. And we spend $64 billion, as a state, we spend $64 billion a year on food. We could definitely, if we were to focus, because our exports last year were 30 billion. Our production was about 30 billion. So we're buying twice as much food as we're producing now. So we could be doing a lot better with our agriculture in this state. Doesn't take that much. 10% shift in the way people purchase would change the situation.
You mentioned this website, California's Campaign for New Mainstream in Food, Farms, and Fisheries. Is that the avenue for getting this message out?
That's one of them. That's on our website, Roots of Change, which is up right here. If you go to Roots of Change, rockfund.org or rocknetwork.org, I'll make sure you all get that. You can get to that document. It's in there. Actually, we have just given a fellowship to Kate Magruder from Mendocino County. She's now she applied for a fellowship for Roots of Change. She's going to be one of our 25 fellows this year and will become an active participant in implementing that campaign. So she will be your link, along with Paul Dolan, along with Carrie Brown, others that I know here who are interested in engaging. We're happy because Mendocino County is one of our target counties because we see the proximity to the Bay Area, number one. We see the crop mix. We see the commitment to sustainability as all things that are in line with what we're trying to do.
Yes, from the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of concerned this seems like a typical approach by the state that we've identified a crisis and we've come up with a plan with a 22-year time frame to address it. So it seems to me like a lot of these things need to be done a lot quicker if they're going to really be effective.
Yeah. First of all, it wasn't produced by the state. It was produced by it started with 116 leaders from the state of California, most of which were entrepreneurs. People like Paul Dolan, others from the state who are running food businesses. They were the primary architects of the concepts that emerged for this project. The reason that when it started, it was more than 22. When it started, it was early, about 2004, so it was even longer, 25 years, I guess. The reason that number was chosen is because, in fact, you cannot solve the problem any sooner than that. These problems are systemic and interlocking. And therefore, if you really are into this idea of getting to a sustainable food system, and we could go into that, but I haven't described that really, but what do we mean by that? It's not going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. We're going to be lucky if it happens by 2030. We're going to hit a home run if it happens by 2030. But it was beyond that, you can't focus. So the goal was, and the Secretary of Agriculture has now agreed that 2030 is the year. The state is now doing its corollary to this plan that syncs up, we hope. That's what we're working on right now with the Secretary. I was just talking on the way up here with one of his prime aides who's working on this project. We're trying to sync the two, the state's work, our work from the private sector. But admitting that 22 years is a hell of a long time and hard to keep people focused, that's why we're bringing in 5-year plans. And that's why I laid out, I don't know if you were here, but I laid out at the very beginning what our first 5-year goals are. And those 5-year goals are all they're meant to do is provide an example and demonstrate that you can change systems by creating networks of collaborators. Like the wine industry has done now with their sustainability work,